Have you ever touched someone, yet still felt like your souls were miles apart? You said all the right words. You did everything by the book. You were physically present, but deep down, you knew something was missing. Something you couldn't grasp with your hands or see with your eyes. But something that made every connection feel strangely hollow. And what if I told you that what she remembers isn't the way you held her, or the words you said at the right time, but the way you truly showed up, the quiet presence behind your eyes, the stillness in your spirit that made her feel safe? True intimacy doesn't begin with the hands. It begins with consciousness, with being there, not to fix, not to impress, but simply to witness, to listen without waiting to speak, to open your heart without demanding anything in return. That's when the other person feels seen, understood, and safe, not because you did everything perfectly, but because you were fully there. Welcome to Shining Mirror-LVB, where we reflect on the invisible layers of life, where wisdom doesn't come from textbooks but from the tenderness of the human heart. Today, let's explore a truth that many people get wrong. That closeness doesn't begin when you touch someone else. It begins when you are finally willing to touch your own soul. Because only when you are fully present with yourself, can you ever be truly present with another. We often believe that intimacy begins with physical gestures, a touch, a kiss, a perfectly timed whisper. But in truth, real intimacy begins long before you ever lay a hand on her. It begins the moment you enter the room, with the energy you carry in your body, your breath, your gaze, your silent awareness. Women don't fall for the script. They fall for emotional leadership. They don't just hear your words, they feel the state of your nervous system. From a scientific perspective, the human body operates through a subconscious system called neuroception, the ability to sense safety or danger without words. This is a biological survival function, and in women, it's especially heightened due to evolutionary and social conditioning. That means before you touch her, she already feels what you're bringing. Are you carrying tension? Are you seeking approval? Or are you grounded, calm, and present enough to let her be her full self? She won't remember your hands as much as she remembers your energy. She won't quote your words, but she'll never forget how she felt around you. That feeling doesn't live in action. It lives in presence. Your presence is the loudest whisper you'll ever speak, even in silence. True masculinity is not measured by conquest, nor does it come from control. It arises from the ability to create a space where a woman can exhale deeply, let go of her defenses, and simply be herself. It's a quiet strength, not one that needs to dominate, but one that provides enough emotional safety for another soul to slowly unfold. When a woman feels emotionally protected, she can begin to release the armor life may have forced her to wear. She doesn't need you to get everything right. She just needs to know, with this man, I can be all of me, even the messy, confused, or vulnerable parts, and that's okay. This is what many men miss, that women are not looking for someone to fix them, but someone who accepts them as they are. And in that radical acceptance, something soft begins to bloom. Biologically, this truth is backed by science. Oxytocin, the connection hormone, is only released when a woman feels safe and genuinely emotionally connected. It doesn't surge from impressive dates or well-rehearsed lines. It flows from true presence, from being fully there without chaos, without trying to control, without needing an outcome. When your presence is steady, quiet, and deeply grounded, she opens, not because you made her, but because she feels free to. And when a woman feels safe enough to be herself, you don't have to try hard. She'll stay not because you touched her body, but because you reached her soul. Take a moment and ask yourself, when you approach someone you love, what are you truly bringing with you? Are you carrying peace, or a hidden urgency to be validated? Are you reaching out from sincerity, or from a fear of not being enough? Your emotional state is the key. It's the first thing she feels, often even before you speak. If you're anxious, tense, or emotionally unsettled, she'll sense it through something called neuroception, a subconscious ability to detect safety or threat without words. Women are especially attuned to this signal, so even if you say all the right things and do all the right gestures, if your inner state is unstable, she won't be able to open up, not because she doesn't care, but because her body is protecting her from uncertain connection. Before you touch her body, touch the truth within yourself. Ask, am I connecting from love or from fear? Am I emotionally safe for myself first? The peace you cultivate within is the most powerful invitation for her to feel seen, heard, and fully herself. That's the real beginning of intimacy, not in what you do, but in the energy you bring. Your emotional state is the very first doorway to true connection. Not your charming words, not the carefully planned gestures, but the frequency of emotion you carry when you're with her. Are you at peace within yourself? Or are you trying to prove something, perhaps to fill an invisible gap in your soul? Women sense more than you say. They don't just listen with ears, but with intuition, with a kind of emotional radar built for years of silent understanding. If you walk into her world with anxiety, with restlessness, or with a silent craving to be validated, she will feel it, not through your words, but through the energy you bring into the room. And when a woman doesn't feel emotionally safe, she closes, not because she doesn't care, but because her nervous system demands protection. A man can touch a woman's body and never reach her soul, simply because he's never dared to touch his own truth. The reality is, you cannot lead someone emotionally if you have no mastery over your own emotions. You cannot love someone fully if you've never paused long enough to ask yourself, what is my heart truly saying? Before you ask her to open up, go inward, sit quietly, breathe, ask yourself, am I seeking love or running from loneliness? Do I want connection or just comfort? When you become still enough, when you understand yourself deeply, your presence becomes safe, and in that safety, she softens, because women are not searching for a perfect man. They are longing for an emotional space safe enough to be imperfect in. A place where they don't have to perform strength, where they can fall apart and still be held. And when you offer that, for your emotional steadiness, you do more than connect. You begin to heal. True masculine strength does not reside in power, control, or dominance. It lives in the quiet inner stillness of a man who knows how to fully show up without needing to prove anything. Leading in love is not about pulling someone toward you. It's about holding a steady emotional space where the other person feels safe to come closer on their own. It's not found in loud declarations, but in the kind of deep listening that doesn't interrupt. Not in grand gestures, but in the ability to notice and respect even the smallest shifts in her emotions. When you are truly present, you're not trying to take anything from her, not her admiration, not her approval, not her body as a reward. You are there simply to love, without condition, and she will feel that, not with logic, but with her heart. Real connection is not a mechanical formula, it is a living, breathing piece of music. You can't keep playing the same note and expect it to move someone. You have to know when to pause, when to soften, when to offer melody, and when to let silence speak. A man who understands this does not try to manipulate a woman's emotions. He moves with them like a skilled musician, honoring every change, embracing the rests, and not fearing the spaces in between, because he knows love is not a game to win, but a harmony to tune into. And it is this quiet, unforced presence that makes a woman feel safe to love, to trust, and to let down her guard. It is a strength that doesn't need to be loud to be transformative, the strength of a man who has made peace within himself. One of the reasons so many relationships fall out of rhythm isn't about who's right or wrong, it's that we forget men and women operate with entirely different emotional blueprints. This isn't a stereotype, it's biology. A man can shift from neutral to desire in a matter of seconds. But for a woman, It's a slower, emotional journey, one that requires her to feel safe, emotionally held, and genuinely connected. Female desire doesn't emerge from images or scenarios, it rises from an inner sense of being seen, understood, and not rushed. The biggest mistake many men make is trying to ignite desire before building trust. They believe that with enough charm, skill, or effort, she'll open up. But the truth is, without trust, all those efforts are like trying to light a fire in the rain. Not because you're not enough, but because the emotional space hasn't been cultivated for that fire to catch. A woman may notice your appearance, but she truly responds when she feels deeply respected and emotionally understood. Desire is not something you can force. It's the natural outcome of safety, built moment by moment through eye contact, patient listening, gentle pacing, and the absence of pressure. It's when you show up not to take something, but to share something. And remember, what sparks you may not be what stirs her. While you may be seeking physical closeness, she's longing for emotional depth. When you understand and honor that difference, you don't just become a lover, you become a source of healing. The hard truth is this: if you're waiting for her to tell you how she feels, chances are you've already missed the moment when it mattered most. Because women don't always speak their emotions, but their bodies always do. Over 90% of emotional communication is nonverbal. That means you can't rely solely on words to understand what she's truly feeling. You have to learn how to hear the pauses, how to read the silence, how to sense what's not being said. This is the art of observation, a subtle form of emotional intelligence that only a man with depth can cultivate. When she exhales a little too slowly, or quietly steps back, or lets her gaze drift away, these are not random gestures. These are messages from her nervous system, quietly asking, "Can you feel me?" A woman's body responds to both safety and unsafety, often before her mind can even label what's happening. And you will only perceive that if you're not consumed by your own agenda, but are truly present with her as she is. This is what separates the reactive man from the man who leads. The one who leads doesn't control, he observes, he senses, and he responds from a grounded place within himself. He's not trying to perform his way into love, he brings love into the space through his very presence. He understands that true connection doesn't come from saying more or doing more. It comes from understanding deeply, deep enough to feel her emotional waves, even when everything outside seems still. And that's what makes him different, not because he's louder, stronger, or flashier, but because he's quietly present in a way that makes others feel seen. Women aren't looking for perfection, they never were. They don't need a man who always says the right thing, always has it together, or always knows what to do. What they truly desire is a space where they can breathe, where they can be fully themselves without fear of judgment, without feeling like they have to improve in order to be worthy of love. They're not impressed by scripts or rehearsed sweet lines. They're moved by presence, by someone who listens for the unsaid, who sees them even in their most unpolished moments. In a world where everyone is performing, the rarest gift a woman seeks is the freedom not to perform. When a man is grounded enough to create that space, one that doesn't pressure, doesn't expect, doesn't demand, she opens, effortlessly, not because she's convinced or afraid to lose him, but because she feels free to be who she truly is. And when she opens in that way, you're not just connecting with her body, you're touching her soul. That's the highest form of giving, a sacred moment when a woman offers you the most authentic version of herself. Unguarded, unfiltered, unmasked, not because you were perfect, but because you were real, present, safe enough for her to simply be. And only then does true love begin. Love, like life, doesn't truly begin with action, but with presence, not with performance, not with control, not with trying to be enough, but with the quiet, steady courage to simply be, when you're not rushing to prove yourself, not performing to be loved, not perfecting every move to avoid rejection. Just present, not with tactics, but with truth. People won't remember how impressive you were. They'll remember how safe they felt around you. The feeling of being fully seen, of being allowed to be themselves, of not being rushed, of being accepted even in silence. A man with inner fullness doesn't chase validation, because his presence is already a gift. He doesn't show up to be chosen. He shows up to give. He doesn't love to fill a void. He loves because love overflows from within. And just like in your work, success in love doesn't come from getting someone. It comes from becoming someone whose depth naturally draws others in. So ask yourself, am I walking with a full heart? Or am I still wandering the world asking for scraps of love? When you are full, you no longer need people to love you. You simply love quietly, steadily, and fully, and what is real will stay. Not because you held on to it, but because your presence became a sanctuary it didn't want to leave. So, what makes a man unforgettable? It's not his looks, not his perfection, not the gifts he gave or the promises he made. It's how he made her feel like she could simply be herself. No masks, no pressure, no need to wonder, am I good enough today to be loved? He showed up like a forest, still, steady, spacious. He didn't try to touch her body. He created a space where her soul felt touched. She won't remember every little thing you did, but she will remember how she felt in your presence. She'll remember the calm in your eyes, the way you stayed when she was breaking, the way you didn't try to fix her pain, but quietly loved her through it. And as time goes on, when the shine of the surface fades, what stays in her memory is the energy you left behind. An unforgettable man isn't the one who says the perfect words. He's the one who holds the kindest silence when it's needed most. Not the strongest man, but the safest one. Because in the end, the most beautiful memories don't come from perfection. They come from a heart that was truly present, silent, sincere, and still enough for someone to see themselves in it. As the wise once said, to understand another's heart, we must quiet the noise within our own. And maybe, in that quiet, you become the kind of presence no one wants to live without. Now, I'd love to hear from you, not from your mind, but from the quiet place within. Have you ever experienced a moment when someone's presence spoke louder than words? How do you define emotional leadership in a world that moves too fast, talks too much, and listens too little? Share your thoughts in the comments below, not to prove anything, but to shine a light someone else might need. Because when you speak from your truth, somewhere in the world, someone might hear exactly what they've been aching to feel. And if this video stirred something inside you, send it to someone who's walking a similar path, someone searching for real connection. Not noise. Sometimes, a single sentence, heard at the right moment, can soften a whole life's worth of pain. We may not change the world through a speech, but we can shift it by being truly present in the moments that matter. Don't forget to subscribe to Shining Mirror-LVB, a space where every reflection becomes a gentle awakening, where the lost can find their way home, and where you don't have to become someone else, you just have to come back to who you truly are.